Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1997 action thriller, The Jackal. Now, The Jackal is actually a remake. It's one of the lesser-known remakes of its era. A lot of people aren't aware that this is a remake of a film called The Day of the Jackal, which had a screenplay by Kenneth Ross, and that script is the loose basis for this film. The Day of the Jackal was a 1973 film, and that was based on a novel by Frederick Forsyth. And I haven't seen the original in forever, but I don't remember being that impressed with it. So I would probably say I'm one of the few people that prefers the 1997 film over the original. I know Kenneth Ross is not a fan of this adaptation at all, and he wanted to take his name off the credits because he didn't like the adaptation of his script. The film was directed by Michael Caton-Jones, and I think for the most part he does a magnificent job with this film. I thought he did a great job directing this movie. It has a nice flair to it. It's slick. It's stylish. It has a good look to it. The action sequences, when they are there, they are thrilling. They're exciting to watch. They have a good energy to them. The emotional, dramatic scenes, they carry some significant weight. The moments that involve some really bombastic sequences, those are shot in ways where they really do pack a punch. Specifically, any scene that involves the giant remote control gun that the Jackal is going to use for his assassination, or any sequence involving Declan and the Jackal, and the two of them trying to stay one step ahead of one another, or the two of them chasing after one another. Those are really well shot sequences. And overall, I really do think it's a well directed film. It's got some nice visuals. It definitely uses a good sense of lighting. I really like the movement of the camera. There are some scenes that are really exciting to watch, even though it's just sequences involving Bruce Willis painting a car and then taking the paint off while he's timing himself. Like, those scenes are so well shot that it's still exciting to watch, and it's still thrilling despite it being such a mundane thing. And I think it also helped that this is a movie that there wasn't really a lot of like significant visual practical effects that were going on, so you didn't really have a lot of moments where the direction was kind of inconsistent because it seemed like somebody else was directing an effect scene or something like that. You didn't really have anything like that going on with the Jackal. And yeah, I think it had a nice flair. I think that's a good way to put it. A good flair, a good sense of style. Had a nice variety of movement when it comes to the camera, and definitely a lot of good techniques were employed here by Michael Caton-Jones. I don't know what happened to his career afterwards. I don't know why he was, I guess, considered to be not on Hollywood's list for directors, because after this movie, he didn't direct anything until 2002 with this film called City by the Sea with Robert De Niro. And that movie didn't do well at all. And then afterwards, he just was doing direct-to-video stuff. I mean, you could say his most high-profile film he did after City by the Sea was Basic Instinct 2. And that was a high-profile bomb. And this film wasn't a bomb by any means. It made a decent amount of money. And I don't think critics hated it either. Like, they didn't love it, but it's not like it got like consistently bad reviews by everyone. Although it definitely did get a lot of bad reviews, because there's a lot of people that were not fans of it. A lot of critics said it paled in comparison to the original. They said things like it was boring and it was turgid and this and that. And On one hand, I can get it because this is a film that is a slow starter. It takes quite a while for it to really kick into high gear. But for me personally, once it kicks into high gear and it starts focusing on the Jackal and his next hit, and also dealing with Declan and his hunt for the Jackal, the film's actually rather entertaining. It's rather exciting, and I thought it was an effective thriller. It just took a little too long to get going. And I blame the screenplay for that. I blame the script by Chuck Ferrer, because it's also based on a story by Chuck, and this is one of those scripts where it's trying to do too many things. It's trying to have too many characters. It's trying to have too many sort of subplots going on, and really could have benefited from trimming the fat, so to speak, cutting things down, not having so much going on, and just focusing on the necessities, which is the Jackal and Declan hunting for the Jackal. I don't think you really needed a lot of these other characters. You didn't need Major Valentina Kozlova. Didn't need that character. Sidney Poitier is fine, but he's not like he's into it. It's not like his deputy director character is in the film a lot. So what they do with him works for me, but really it should have just focused solely on the Jackal, him setting things up, him creating his plan for his assassination attempt, and Richard Gere's character trying to stop him. It does a little too much at times, and I know for some people you can't have enough character development, or you can't have enough subplots, because that's what makes it more interesting. But I think there are instances where it makes it less effective if you just cut things down and you just stuck to the basics. And I think The Jackal is definitely one of those films, because it has this whole stuff with the Russian mafia in the beginning. You don't even get to Richard Gere's character until like really quite a long way into the movie, and I just feel it was just not a good choice by the screenwriter to take so long to start the clock, so to speak, when it comes to starting this hunt. It's not like a lot of the stuff that happened prior was that interesting or that captivating. Some of it was kind of ridiculous, like the Russian mob and how the Russian mobster guy killed one of his men with an axe at a dinner table. It was just kind of silly and didn't really fit the tone of the movie for the most part. So I think it just would have absolutely 100% benefited from the less is more approach. But like I said, once it gets going, once it starts firing all the bullets in the chamber, that's when it becomes a rather effective thriller. And I think it's very underrated in that regard, because I definitely was wondering how Richard Gere was going to stop the Jackal, and I felt that there was a lot of intrigue going on there. And of course you had the whole intrigue aspect of the fact that Richard Gere's character is a member of the IRA, and you don't really know what he's going to do. Is he going to try to escape? He's going to try to turn coat? Like, what is he? I mean, I never really thought he was going to turn coat, but it's just one of those things like, when is he going to try to escape or not necessarily leave his post or leave his responsibility, but like, what is he going to do? Because he's hired by the FBI to try to track down the Jackal, but you always have this thought in the back of your head that if he has the opportunity to run, he's probably going to take it. So that created an interesting dynamic in terms of like, will he or won't he kind of thing. I also didn't mind the stuff that was set up with him and his wife, Isabella. I like that there's a connection and there's a thread between Isabella and the Jackal, and it's not just Declan. I like that there's sort of a personal vendetta in a lot of ways, because the Jackal is the one that ultimately led to her miscarriage. So I like that she's able to get involved and get a piece of revenge at the end. But I really also appreciated the fact that although she did shoot the Jackal, she wasn't the one that delivered all the shots. She wasn't the one that delivered the final shots. Like, Richard Gere's character Declan still gets some shots in on the Jackal. So I really liked that touch. It made it stand out in a way where it wasn't just Declan doing all the work. His wife got involved too, but it also wasn't one of those lame twists where the hero of the film doesn't even really stop the bad guy. Because I've seen that quite often, and it's always something that hurts a movie and hurts a screenplay. But yeah, other than the fact that there's too many characters at times and it takes a little bit too long to get going, I think it's a decent enough script, especially when it comes to a lot of the elements that really make it work. The Jackal himself, how he's written, how he's a chameleon, a master of disguise, so to speak, how he's able to come up with these really crazy plans, and how he's ultimately stopped, and then the finale in the subway, and how the tables ultimately get turned on him. So yeah, it's a solid script. The cast I thought was excellent. Bruce Willis was absolutely fantastic to me as the Jackal. I really loved this performance. It was something really different and unique for him. He didn't really play a lot of bad guys at this point in his career, so it was really refreshing, and it was really cool to see him play this villain, this notorious hitman in the Jackal. And I thought he did a good job playing these different characters and these different disguises, and I thought he was effective as a cool and calculating and menacing killer. And I thought Richard Gere was a good foil for him. He was a good nemesis. I thought Richard Gere played a good hero. I was very surprised by his Irish accent. I thought he did an incredible job with it. I thought it was going to be laughable and silly, but he put in the time to work with an Irish dialect coach, and it paid off because it sounded authentic to me. And I actually think it's one of his better roles. It's one of my favorite Richard Gere performances, actually. I like his take on this character. He definitely added a certain sense of steely calm that I think created a good vibe or contrast with the Jackal, who's steely but like in a different way, in a more menacing way. You get to see the two contrasts. You see how, somebody can be steely and calm and cool as a cucumber, but is a sociopath and a killer. But then you can see somebody who is similar in that way, but is more heroic. Sidney Poitier, in one of his last film roles, I thought he also did a great job as director Carter Preston. I thought he had some good chemistry with Richard Gere. Honestly, I would have been fine if you just had more stuff with Sidney Poitier and Richard Gere, and they are teaming up to try to stop the Jackal, instead of the stuff with Diane Venora as Major Valentina Kozlova. I just didn't really care for that performance, didn't really care for that character. I thought it was pretty mediocre and just forgettable and average and nothing really that special. I definitely didn't buy her in any scene where she's supposed to be a badass or a strong force, so to speak, because they're trying to make her like this strong force of badass action, and I just didn't see it. I didn't really see her as a badass woman of action. That's just me. I actually thought Mathilda May, in the scene that she had in the end, I thought she was more believable as Isabella. And plus, it was really nice to see Mathilda May. I remember Mathilda May from Life Force. And I know there's a lot of other people out there that remember Mathilda May from Life Force. They remember all of Mathilda May from Life Force, if you know what I mean. But it was nice to see her in another movie, and I thought she did a good job here as Richard Gere's character Declan's ex-wife or ex-girlfriend and Isabella. He also had J.K. Simmons, who played an FBI agent, but it was pretty much a nothing role. Same as for these other guys like Richard Lineback and John Cunningham, and as these other FBI agents. One other actor I want to point out though is Jack Black. Yeah, Jack Black is in this as this guy named Ian Lamont, who's like this weapons builder who is responsible for like building the mechanism to create the gun into a remote control apparatus. It was fun to see Jack Black in a film like this, and this is one of those rare films where Jack Black dies, and if you're one of those people that's not a fan of his, well, you get a cathartic moment here when you get to see him get blown the fuck away. I don't hate Jack Black, but I've never been like an enormous huge fan of his. So it was kind of fun to see him get blown away. Not because I want to see the character the man himself get blown away in real life, but he just plays a lot of irritating, obnoxious, annoying characters to me, and there was a bit of catharsis for me. It was like, that's for envy, you son of a bitch. But no, I mean, I just thought I'd throw that out there because it's definitely one of the things that the film is most remembered for, is when Jack Black gets just completely shot to pieces by the remote control big gun that the Jackal is going to use for his assassination attempt on the First Lady, who's played by Tess Harper, which is another actress that some people might be familiar with. It also features some decent cinematography by Carl Walter Lindenlaub. I would say it definitely was at its best when it comes to cinematography, when it's dealing with more interesting settings where the cinematographer can really make things pop visually. It's not as interesting when it comes to just shooting a random house or the inside of the FBI headquarters. It really shines when it's in Russia in the beginning of the film, and then during some of the scenes during the climax, or stuff like the sailing convention. I don't think it's called a convention, but the regatta, stuff like the regatta. I think that's also where the cinematography shines. The editing also shines in those moments too, by Jim Clark. And definitely during the action sequences. The scene when the Jackal was using his big gun at the end of the film, that was a really explosive action sequence, and that gun packs quite a punch, and the editing really helps that scene be twice as thrilling and twice as exciting to watch, because it just adds an extra added punch to it. Like, it already had a lot of impact enough as it is, but like the editing just gives it a little bit more of a caliber, so to speak, for the gunplay and the gunfire. The music is by Carter Burwell, and I loved this score. I thought Carter Burwell did a phenomenal job. I think it's one of his more underrated scores. It was really cool to hear him do an action thriller, because that's not really the kind of thing he normally does either. So it was really nice to hear him do a different kind of film that he's known for, and I thought he nailed it. I thought he did just an absolutely amazing job with this score. It's unique, it's intriguing. I thought his theme for the Jackal in particular, I thought was really strong. And yeah, it's got a fairly long running time. It's like 124 minutes. So it's like 2 hours. And I think it definitely would have been better if it was more streamlined, because it does drag definitely at the start of the movie. But at the end of the day, I still like the film. Another thing I want to mention about it is the soundtrack, because there's some really choice cuts that are used for the film's soundtrack. For instance, in the opening credits, I thought this was a really unique song choice, really interesting song choice to use for a film like this. Yeah, it's Super Predators by Massive Attack. So that was cool to hear a Massive Attack song in a fairly mainstream studio film in the opening credits. But anyway, I don't really know what else to say about The Jackal, except it's a film that I definitely would recommend checking out sometime if you're a fan of Bruce Willis and Richard Gere, or if you're a fan of thrillers. Definitely to see Bruce Willis in a very different kind of role. Because he played some villains or some bad guys previously to this, but not to this extent. Like, he didn't play a cold, calculating, heartless killer. He played an abusive, asshole boyfriend in Mortal Thoughts, and, you know, he had some other stuff that he was experimenting with, but not really to the extent of The Jackal. And he just played a villain that you loved to hate. Like, you really liked his take on this character. He was charismatic and likable, despite the fact that he was such a sicko and he was such a just absolute ruthless killer. You still like the guy, and a large part is that it's due to Bruce Willis and his inherent charisma. And I thought it was just a great casting choice, because The Jackal really is, a lot of ways, the focus of the film. So it made it so the movie never really lost any steam when it was just focusing on the Jackal and him setting up for his assassination attempt. And it just made it so the movie was definitely better than I think it would have been if Bruce Willis wasn't the one that was playing the Jackal. And I think a lot of that was, I think there were a lot of people involved with the film that wanted to go in a different direction, but the studio really wanted Bruce Willis because he was a pretty big star at the time. And I think the studio made the right call here with Bruce Willis. And I think Richard Gere was a good choice too. I know Richard Gere and Bruce Willis hated each other. I know they vowed to never work together ever again after this movie. But it's another one of those films where, despite the fact that the two stars didn't get along, it doesn't really cause the film to fall apart at the seams. It still is a rather solid film, despite the fact that the two stars wanted to wring each other's throats while they were shooting the movie. And in this instance, the antagonistic sort of connection between the two, it actually works. It just adds to the film, because you have this legit animosity between these two actors for one another. So it carries over into their performances, because these two characters want to kill each other anyway. But anyway, I don't know what else to say about The Jackal, except thanks for watching my review of the movie, and as always, I'll see you later. See ya.